A veteran of the Afghan war says the plan by Blackwater founder Erik Prince gives the U.S. the chance to leave the region without retreating. One America's Neil McCabe has more.
Marine combat veteran Brandon Wheeler studied the history and culture of Afghanistan before he deployed there as an infantry officer. He told One American News if the Pentagon is allowed to fight the war there as it is now, it can only end with helicopters taking off from the roof of the embassy, like in Saigon. The executive director of the Freedom Research Foundation, Brandon Wheeler, served as a Marine officer in Afghanistan, and he has studied the country's history. Wheeler told One American News that the U.S. effort in Afghanistan is unsustainable because it does not align with the interests of the Afghani people.
If we understand that war is politics by other means, then we have to understand that the continuation of conflict has to lead to governing structures that are understood and respected by the people who live there.
The son of President Ronald Reagan's staffer and speechwriter, Dr. Jack Wheeler, said, "There is not a single metric that has improved for the people of Afghanistan since the war began, shortly after the September 11th attacks."
Well, we're obviously failing. There's not one general who can point to a real measure of success when it comes to creating a governing structure that can say that anything we've done in the last 17 years has bettered that country.
Prince's plan addresses the problems the U.S. military has not solved.
Those three elements of mentors embedded with every unit of the Afghan army, every battalion, reliable air that shows up with no excuses, and three, governance support to make sure the supply, payroll, and medical issues are solved, makes an Afghan security force which is way more capable of engaging and pursuing the enemy anywhere and everywhere.
This is the one-year anniversary of President Donald Trump's reboot of the war effort in Afghanistan. In an August 21st address at Fort Myer, Virginia, the president told his national security team and the troops in the audience that the American people were tired of war.
But we must acknowledge the reality I am here to talk about tonight, that nearly 16 years after September 11th attacks, after the extraordinary sacrifice of blood and treasure, the American people are weary of war without victory.
Military victories drive diplomatic breakthroughs. People have a lot more confidence in their local, regional, and the federal government in Afghanistan if the security forces were reliable.
It's very direct because he's clearly trying to dislodge the stalemate that's occurred between the very cumbersome conventional force of the U.S. military that's stagnant and has no vision and no focus on what the future is.
Another benefit of Prince's plan is that it sets up for an Afghanistan that carries on after the Americans leave, he said.
But we build a government, we build a military. How do they fund themselves once the U.S. taxpayer is not paying for it? There is no plan for that. So then when the money's gone, then what happens? The whole thing collapses.
Wheeler told One American News that the United States is a force for good in the world, and the answer is not for America to withdraw from its interests overseas. But there is more than one way to stay engaged. He said he supports Erik Prince's plan because it plays to America's strength and moves away from the tactics that have obviously failed. Neil W. McCabe, One American News, Washington.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.